I'd like to call the School District of Indian River County's business meeting to order. It's October 26th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. First item this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. The pledge will be led by the Vero Beach High School's Air Force Junior ROTC Detachment 043 under the direction of Wade E. Dews, Chief Master Sergeant Retired, Aerospace, U.S. Air Force, and Dean Rasdell, Retired Major, U.S. Air Force.
Post. Colors. And salute. Ready. 2. Post. March. Forward. March. Up. 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 March. Up. Up. Colors. Hold.
All right, next order of business is the adoption of the orders of the day. Are there any consent items that school board members would like to move from consent to action?
Yeah, no, I don't have one of those. I do have something else I need to bring up.
All right. Mrs. Rosario, you wanted to move an
Yes,
item.
I'd like to move discussion, an item discussion
15A.
15A, yes, to
To
action.
Okay. We're also going to add start time for business meetings to discussion. And we're also going to add removal of policy 0169.1 from November 16th public hearing to action. Are there any other items?
Yeah, I have two. The 9:28 minutes need a correction, and I discussed that correction with Ms. Esplin. I was on Teams, and at the very beginning of the call to the orders of the day, I also voted, but you didn't see me because I was on the screen over there until after. So it's a minor little thing, but I did vote for that.
Okay.
So she's going to amend it for our next meeting. And then can you move my item 13A to the beginning of the meeting, because we have some special guests with us to talk about that item.
Done.
Thank you.
Any other changes to the agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the changes to the orders of the day?
I make a motion?
Second?
Mrs. Rosario, Dr. Jones, all in favor?
Aye.
No one is opposed. All right, thank you very much. And now
Proclamation.
we have Proclamation of Moonshot Moment.
Good evening, everyone. We have two special proclamations tonight. We're going to start out with the Learning Alliance and Moonshot Moment, Faces of Literacy. Marie O'Brien is here from the Learning Alliance, and she will be showing you some of our Faces of Literacy, along with a presentation. So Marie, please come up.
Hi, everybody, and thank you very much, Dr. Moore, and to the school board. We're so happy to be here. We are here today to talk to you about this next decade of work that we started about 10 years ago. So some of you are going to recognize, let me make sure I get the, my left-handed, get the next one. Some of you are going to recognize some of the faces and the work that was done here about 10 years ago. And we're here today because we're very excited as we're moving into this next decade of work that we want to introduce and bring back this campaign. We call it the Faces of Early Literacy. Today's readers are tomorrow's leaders. And what it is this is a community outreach campaign. We use these giant black and white posters. I'll hold one up in a minute, and you can see how big they are. I think you can see on the screen there as well. The posters really create this, people notice them. So when you're going to be around the county, you're going to see the posters everywhere, and it creates a learning conversation. This is some posters that we did at the Brackett Library. It's really cute. The little girl there happened to be there, and that was her poster we were pasting up, so she helped paste that up. The people who are involved in this, it's everyone's here. You know, if you are a community leader, if you care about taking a stand for children and early literacy, then Moonshot Moment, this is a literacy movement that we've created that we really need everyone to be moving forward. These are some pictures from the Gifford Youth Achievement Center. You see our friend Mrs. Margaret Ingram there in her astronaut space suit, and she's here with us today. It's just some more recap photos. You know, these are some of the banks were involved. You see the three pictures there. Learning Tracks Preschool in Sebastian. That photo on the right, those of you who were here a long time ago may remember the Press Journal building. And again, this is to give you an idea of the scale and what these giant posters look like. And the reason, what's the why? Why are we doing this? Third grade reading is really important. It's this pivot point. From kindergarten to third grade, you're learning to read, because after that you have to be able to learn, read to learn. And if you can't read by the end of third grade, the statistics show that only 1 in 6 children will get caught up. So our goal is that Indian River County will be a literacy capital of the nation. And we know that schools can't do it alone. So that's why we've got a group here today, and they'll join us after the proclamation is read for the photo. Some of the representatives from our group, we call it MCAN, the Moonshot Community Action Network. We all work together with the district. Our Moonshot goal is that kids will be ready for kindergarten when they come to kindergarten, and by the end of third grade, at least 90% are reading on level. As you see, I think at the bottom you see there, literacy is the #1 indicator of individual success and community prosperity, so literacy really is the foundation for all learning. And the way the campaign works is it's part of this international movement called the Inside Out Project. We have these giant photos of, they're going to be the faces of children from our county, and they're pasted up all over. This was our biggest one that we did. It's the hospital, so you can imagine. We actually had to have the fire department paste those up. Here are some that we did in Fellsmere and in Old City Hall. But again, once at each of these events, when the posters are going up, an event is held, the community is brought in, people talk about why they're doing this, what they care about, and they show their commitment to literacy. So the when, we're starting today. Today's the proclamation, so we're so excited to Dr. Jones for issuing this proclamation. In November, we'll be collecting photos. December, we have a kind of a big kickoff event. In January, in Literacy Week in January, it's the last week in January, you'll start to see these posters pasted up all over the county. I hope that you guys will join the journey. You'll talk about early literacy, learn about it, and we're asking everyone to commit to it. So I think, okay, back to.
So with that, we'll have Dr. Jones read the proclamation.
Thank you very much. It certainly is my privilege to read this with all of our community members here, MCAN, Learning Alliance, and everyone else. Faces of Early Literacy. Today's readers are tomorrow's leaders, designating 2022 as the year of the Faces campaign. to embrace early literacy as a top leadership priority. Whereas early literacy is a gateway to all learning. Whereas literacy is a key to individual success and economic prosperity, with an $8 to 1 return pre-K to 3rd grade and as much as $13 to 1 for quality early education. Whereas we know literacy doesn't just happen starting in kindergarten, and schools cannot do it alone. Whereas children learn to read so they can read to learn. If they do not read by 3rd grade, only 1 in 6 will succeed. Whereas while the nation has remained flat in literacy scores, Indian River County has grown from 53% in 2015-16 to 60% for 2020-21. Reading on grade level. Our Moonshot goal is 90%. Whereas Indian River County has been recognized nationally for our Moonshot collective work 9 times, and the Learning Alliance and School District of Indian River County partnerships have been recognized by the Oak Foundation as one of 4 national bright spots for academic programming. Whereas the State of Florida Chamber has proclaimed kindergarten readiness in 3rd grade reading to be critical milestones so that we can become a top 10 economy by 2030. Now, therefore, we, the School District of Indian River County, agree to co-lead the 2022 Faces of Early Literacy. Today's readers are tomorrow's leaders with the Moonshot Community Action Network. As we enter the next decade of our Moonshot Moment campaign, we are committed to our Moonshot Moment goal for children to be ready for kindergarten and 90% reading on level by the end of 3rd grade. Adopted this 26th day of October, 2021, School Board of Indian River County.
Yeah. No, we have vote. We have voted. We have voted.
Board members, can I have a motion to approve the proclamation as read?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I think if you are part of our Moonshot Community Action Network and you're here tonight, if you want to come up, we'll get a group photo.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We're looking
Oh,
forward to this
absolutely.
project.
Thank you.
Standing or sitting?
Probably stand. Out the way. We have to do 2 rows from now. The posters in front.
Do you all want us to hold those pictures so they could see it? Not at all. I'll hold.
We just put them up and we can be in the picture, not at all.
Chairs, there you go.
Good, yeah, we can do that.
Okay. One more.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And just quickly, as the team begins to depart, stop right there. Megan, stop. Just want to thank the entire team. This isn't common. This isn't what you find across our nation. And your willingness to come and roll up your sleeves and get to work to create that literacy capital of America is something that really pushes and drives me. And I think each and every single one of you should celebrate your effort, your willingness to come in and support. We are transforming a school system, and a school system cannot work in isolation. And to have the opportunity to partner with each and every single one of you is a true pleasure. To have the opportunity to be pushed by each and every single one of you, also a pleasure. So thank you for so much. There's so many great things about Indian River County, and those who are standing in that corner over there, you're a bunch of those things. So thank you very much for all you're doing for kids.
Okay, every October, we recognize the Vaping Awareness Month, and we've been doing this for the past few years. We are working with SAFER and Kylie Savoy from the Quit Doc Foundation. We read a proclamation 2 years ago, I believe, and then last year we were dealing with COVID, so we did not. But we are very, very happy to have them back again today so that Kylie can present some information to you about vaping awareness, and we can read our proclamation. Kylie?
All right, thank you. Good evening, my name is Kylie Savoy, and I am the project director for the Quit Doc Foundation. I would just like to thank the superintendent and the board today for presenting this proclamation on vaping. So as Kristen had mentioned, this is our third year in a row having a proclamation designating October as Vaping Awareness Month. Vaping continues to remain one of the #1 problems among our youth. These devices contain very high levels of nicotine, and we are now facing a new generation that is addicted to nicotine and will likely suffer for this addiction for a lifetime. And it was with the support of this community, the school district, the SAFER Coalition, and the Substance Awareness Center that we are taking steps to lead the state of Florida in preventing lifelong nicotine addiction and reaching youth who need treatment. So I would like to turn it over to one of our SAFER SWAT youth who is going to read the proclamation deeming October Vaping Awareness Month. Ariana?
Whereas the federal government declared youth e-cigarette use or vaping a nationwide epidemic, and whereas youth vaping has increased dramatically across the country and in Florida. Whereas in 2020, 21.6% of high schoolers and 8.1% of middle schoolers used e-cigarettes. Whereas e-cigarettes are unsafe for kids, teens, and young adults. And whereas e-cigarettes typically contain nicotine, which is a highly addictive chemical, and the developing youth brain is more vulnerable to its effects, including reduced impulse control, deficits in attention and cognition, and mood disorders. Whereas e-cigarettes aerosol is not harmless water vapor, and the aerosol that users breathe from an e-cigarette device and exhale can contain harmful and potential harmful substances, including cancer-causing chemicals and heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead. Whereas the focus of October 2021 is to get accurate information about youth and e-cigarette use into the hands of our students and parents, which is an important step to reversing this alarming trend in our schools. And whereas Indian River County is committed to the goals and objectives of Vaping Awareness Month through a variety of public health activities and programs. Now, therefore, the School Board of Indian River County hereby proclaims October 2021 as Vaping Awareness Month.
Can I have a motion to approve the proclamation as read?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Very well
Motion
done.
carries 4-0. Very well done, ladies.
I think it's just us.
Now I feel tall. Standing next to you helps. And just once again, before they get taken to dinner, thank you for supporting and educating our children. And I know last year we had the opportunity to do a Facebook Live, and I've never met anyone who can just know absolutely everything about vaping. So the depth and skill in which you're able to talk through this crisis and how you're able to educate is something you should be very, very proud of. So thank you for all you're doing.
Dr. Moore, I was going to say the same thing. Kylie is like an encyclopedia of e-cigarette and vaping facts. So if you ever have any questions about anything, signs to look at for your kids to see if they're vaping, ways to stop, please contact her. It's amazing. And we had a Facebook Live this year too, so you can go back and watch that on YouTube. All right, our next presentation is a short video. Raise your hand if you were at the community Choice and Community Extravaganza at the IG Center. So, we had a huge turnout this year, and it was amazing. So we put together a video for that. It was held on Saturday, October 19th at the IG Center, and different school teams shared about the programs that were offered at their schools. Community partners shared information on services for students and families. Informative breakout sessions went throughout the day. Hands-on experiences for children, shuttles from North County sites, and my favorite, Kona Ice, was there. I'd like to just thank Cindy Emerson and her team up in Curriculum and Instruction. Cindy organized this event and totally deserves a round of applause. It was a great event. And we hope you enjoy the video.
We are coming together for the first annual SDIRC School Choice and Community Extravaganza. Well, we have really amped up our school choice and themes throughout the district, offering unique programs so parents can pick the school that works best for their child. So today, every single school leadership team is here, highlighting their programs and encouraging our families to pick the school that meets their needs. Part of our school choice theme is encouraging our schools to offer unique programs like our Sebastian Elementary cheerleaders and dance team and our Gifford Middle School drumline. We have over 9 breakout sessions taking place today, so you can meet the superintendent and learn about Achieve 2025. We have a Spanish session for parent resources, as well as 6 different ESE partnership presentations taking place in our breakout rooms. You can also come out for our health screenings. Parents can even come out for the Focus on Focus session to learn more about the resources we have available to them. We have over 25 community partners that have come out to share about their programs, the extracurricular activities that students can do, and the partnership that we have with them within the community. It's all about choice and voice, and so it is a passion of mine to make sure that our parents know we are here to meet their needs for their child. Today was an incredible event and truly collaborative. We want to thank all of our parents and families who came out today, as well as our community partnerships and all the departments of SDIRC, because we are truly innovating our school district.
So when Miss Maddox refers to Miss Emerson's team, the entire team is standing right there by that wall because she is a team of one. And of course, the district team supported her, but choice has come so far. The innovation that's taking place in our schools, it's a strategic approach within our school improvement plans. Cindy, I always say, has one of the best jobs in the district because she's out creating and innovating. But at that event, it really, gave you chills to see in a positive way. The community support, the volume of people that were there, the community partners, parents coming in and moving through the different booths, really exploring where's the best fit for my son or daughter. So it really was a great sign, a great day, very well coordinated. I know we got bigger and better plans moving in the future, but absolutely outstanding job by Ms. Emerson, CNI, our principals, absolutely outstanding.
I'm sure you're already planning for next year. So our last, but one of my favorite things every week is, I'm getting my weeks and months confused today, I don't know, every school year is National School Lunch Week. That was held last week, and our food nutrition department did an amazing job of promoting National School Lunch Week. It's one of the best weeks that we've had here as far as I'm concerned. Our cafeterias, they put on different activities for the kids. There were different tastings. There was a ton of information that we sent out about our cafeteria programs. And tonight we have Tracy Simonton, who's the Director of Food and Nutrition Services. She will come up. Tracy, bring your team with you if you would like. And she has a short presentation for National School Lunch Week.
Hey, we're good. Good evening, everyone. Like Kristen said, National School Lunch Week is something that we look forward to every year. So what we want to do is kind of give you a little snapshot of what our department has been doing and what opportunities we are giving the students to experience new and probably some fruits and vegetables that they've never experienced before, okay? So first thing we're going to talk about is on November 5th and 6th, my team will be attending the Florida School Nutrition Association Annual Conference and Expo. And while we're there, we'll not only be learning from some of the most highly qualified professionals in the department and in child nutrition, but my team will also be presenting one of the breakout sessions for other food service professionals around the state. Okay, so anyone who has worked in a school cafeteria knows that the cardinal rule is do not touch the cook's cart. They go crazy, don't touch the cart. All right, so this training was developed by my team and is designed to incorporate puzzles and riddles and tasks associated with child nutrition to determine who stole the cook's cart. Could it be Principal Plumer, David Blanco, the cafeteria manager, Ruby Reddale, the pre-K teacher, Coach Caliente, we have Dusty Greenfield, the satellite worker, or we have Miss Edna Sapphire, our school secretary. But I'm not going to give away the secret. I don't want anyone knowing who's responsible just yet. Okay? Second thing I want to highlight is our new marketing and quality control person that we have in place. Carolyn is new to the department. We revamped one of our previous allocated positions to now include marketing and quality control. So I'm sure you've seen the many new posts on social media, and Carolyn has been working a lot with Miss Maddox to get the word out about special events that are happening in our cafeterias. So the first job she was tasked with was promoting National School Lunch Week. From October 11th to the 15th, cafeterias were transformed into jungles. And one of the highlights was an art contest where students were to use any medium they chose to create a masterpiece, highlighting why they were wild about school lunch. And middle and high school students were also required to submit an essay with their artwork. So each school selected one piece of art to be judged to be the overall winner. The school-based winners will have their art on display in the Vero Beach Museum of Art from December 1st through January 3rd. And their art can also be seen in Vero Beachside newspaper and the Vero Beach magazine. For the school-based winners, we were then tasked with choosing a grand champion of the elementary and the secondary level. Extremely difficult. All the entries were amazing. Each of the students that were selected as the grand prize winners won an art package and 2 tickets to Disney World. Okay? Their artwork will be on display as well, November 4th to January 3rd, and we have the winners here with us tonight. Okay? Yes, Carolyn?
Drum roll or?
Drum roll. So from Osceola Magnet, we have Ella. We didn't change it. Ella Asagi. Ella's artwork. All right. And she gets a Top Banana Award. And then if we can get your mom up here to get a picture, please.
She's taking pictures. Look at me.
She's taking pictures. She's got to be in a picture.
We'll send it to you.
Okay, and I'm almost done. All right, and then for our secondary level, we have Sarah Murphy from Storm Grove Middle School. Okay. These ladies did an awesome job. Well done. And thank you so much for participating. All right? Let's get a picture. Okay.
Get the banana, how funny.
I know. Thought it was for Miss Maddox.
Good job, ladies. Good job.
Congratulations to these two ladies and their beautiful artwork. I think that if they're offering art lessons, I might have to take some from them. And last but not least, still highlighting National School Lunch Week, we have a video presentation that we put together for the different cafes around our district and all of the super cool things that they did.
Every year during the second full week in October, the School Nutrition Association sponsors National School Lunch Week. This year's theme was Wild About School Lunch. The school district of Indian River County celebrated the occasion in a variety of ways. Here are some of the most nutritious highlights from the week. At Osceola Magnet School, 5th grade students created hedgehogs using 1 peeled pear, toothpicks, grapes, 1 blueberry, and 2 chocolate chips. The young culinary artists were then able to snack upon their tasty creations. On the other side of the county, students at Sebastian River High School had the opportunity to enjoy dishes from around the world all week. On Wednesday, October 13th, the Sebastian River High School Sharks had a feeding frenzy as they satisfied their appetites with fish and chips, a delicacy from across the pond. Lunch lines at many of the schools had themes. At Dodgertown Elementary, students were transported to an aquatic paradise when walking through the Under the Sea themed lunch line. Watermelon carvings were displayed in many lunch lines throughout the district. Students were able to see the cafeteria staff's scrumptious mascot-themed artwork at Sebastian River Middle School, Vero Beach High School, Sebastian River High School, and Treasure Coast Elementary School. To close out the festivities, the winners of the Wild About School Lunch art contest were announced. Congratulations to the winners and everyone who participated in the contest. The School District of Indian River County understands the importance of school lunch. We will continue to serve nutritious and delicious meals and emphasize the importance of healthy eating practices.
School lunch has definitely changed since we were in school in a
Correct.
very, very good way. And that is all that we have for presentations tonight. So Dr. Moore?
Thank you. That is it. Thank you.
Very good, exciting
Thanks, Tracy.
evening.
Good job.
All right, when we change the orders of the day, we're now going to discuss action item number 13A. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Berenborg.
Thank you, sir. School transportation safety awareness is a concern. I know everybody has, and recently we've had some really tragic things happen in the county below us, and I'm aware of 5 incidences that happened just last week in our county, and I'm sure there were others that we don't know about. So do you want me to read this whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would call the speakers, if you have speakers.
Yeah, do you want me to read the item?
I would, but I would do the speakers first.
Okay, so we have invited some speakers, I believe all in uniform, and I appreciate you coming out, gentlemen, to tell us about awareness of what's happening, what we need to do, what the laws are that are in place right now, and just so the board members know and the public knows, there are 2 laws that are actually proposed for legislation this year. And so anyways,
He's got the speakers.
okay.
Why don't you invite the speakers who want to speak to this?
Okay, I'll invite them. Deputy Chief Milo Thornton. You get to come up here because you're part of my presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, evening.
On behalf of the men and women of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, we thank you for having us. Sheriff Flowers couldn't be here tonight. He's away in Tallahassee on business. So you're stuck with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the Indian River County Sheriff's Office supports the school district's initiative with school bus safety. We are aware of the incidents that have happened down in St. Lucie County, the tragic incidents that happened with the little girl. And I can tell you, when we see those things, it makes us really start focusing more and more in those areas. We have a dedicated traffic unit. Our traffic unit's it's not as large as your fleet of buses, but we do our best to keep up with our students to make sure that they're safe to and from school. When we talk about these things that that you saw here and with vehicles traveling around buses that are stopped, rather it's picking up our students or dropping off our students after school and from sporting events, there are fines, there are heavy fines that are associated with those type of incidents. Those individuals can receive up to a $500 fine and mandatory court appearances to explain their actions to a judge. I don't think that's stiff enough when you consider what could happen to our students who are just trying to cross the street. We are gearing up for some campaigns to address these very issues, sort of like we do when school starts back, when we put that information out there to motorists, to stop if there's no median. We have to remind our folks, we had a conversation earlier about individuals not seeing buses for a large portion of the year, and then all of a sudden there's buses everywhere, and they're still in their rush to get to the bank. You're already late for work, so why are you rushing? You're already late. So these are things that we are gearing up towards. I don't know if you had any other questions for me, but I can tell you I've had some conversations with our superintendent and deputy superintendent about other initiatives that I like to see. We have a real-time crime center, of course, obviously you guys know that, and it's steadily getting better and better by the day. And we know that you guys have some resources that we can use so we can keep an eye on our students and track our students, so we know where those buses are, when they're moving, and we can get our deputies to those locations as things are occurring through our live 911 sophisticated system that we have in our dispatch center. So we are doing everything we can to shorten our response time, but more importantly, just know where our students are so that we can keep an eye on them throughout the day and in the evening.
Thank you. Hold on one second. You mentioned the $500 fine and mandatory court appearance. What if somebody witnesses it, or what if we had cameras on the side of the bus? Would that be able to be used then in those court appearances?
So we use that information just like we use any other type of surveillance if it was on a corner store or in a mobile trailer that was positioned on the side of the road. We use that information to help us with intelligence. But keep in mind, vehicles are registered to multiple people, and sometimes they're registered to corporations. So we have to still identify who that driver is. I certainly wouldn't want the police to show up to arrest a dad when it was his son that was driving the car with his buddies, and committed a traffic violation. So, the information is useful. It does have some use, but there's still investigative actions that need to take place, like making 100% certain that the driver, the person that was driving that vehicle, is the person that was responsible for that infraction, and not just looking at a piece of paper to see who the vehicles are registered to. Some of us loan our vehicles out to friends, who may be experiencing some hardships, and so we really want to make sure that we identify them. It does give us some information, if a vehicle was a particular vehicle in its color, and possible damage, if, we can see where it struck an individual or a bus. So it does have its use, but at what costs do you want to do that? I mean, we use the same information from our eyewitnesses if we have a bus driver or students. Our students are very observative these days, as they see, fancy cars or particular cars driving around. So, we use that information. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And you mentioned the real-time crime center and that we have things that can help with that. Dr. Moore, did you want to address that at all?
Through the chair, as was mentioned, we are in conversations about being able to, through agreement, provide information to the deputies, so they have that information. So if something arises, they would know exactly where to go. So eliminating, in some cases, the middleman to make sure the information is being provided to them through this their one-time crime scene. I have not seen it yet, but I've seen or heard from a number of individuals how innovative it is, and it is a opportunity for us to partner, as we always have, to maximize the sharing of information, to get support to where it needs to be as quickly as possible.
And that would actually speed up the amount of time that they would actually be able to, if somebody was passing a bus, they'd be able to find them very quickly because of that.
Yes,
Correct.
ma'am. And
Okay.
we've also, our sheriff and the members of the sheriff's office have deployed a lot of other sophisticated equipment out there. I know the Fellsmere Police Department, their chief, and I'm aware of Sebastian and the other, our law enforcement partners are all, deploying sophisticated information that talks directly to our real-time crime center and shortens our response time, as well with our new and improved Live 911. Our deputies are allowed to hear the calls as they're coming in and start heading in those directions as our call takers are gathering that information. So, they have the opportunities, if it was a vehicle versus pedestrian or vehicle versus a bus, they have an opportunity to be scanning, those areas while en route to that incident, but hoping they can identify it before waiting. Traditionally, there was a 10, 15-minute wait while the dispatcher retrieved that information from the caller. That's no more. Our deputies are en route as soon as the call comes in, because they can hear it from the individual that's calling and speaking directly to our dispatchers.
Thank you. And I don't know if the public knew that, and, I just learned of it, so I appreciate that very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Shaw?
Excuse me. Hi, Tony Consolo.
Oh, Tony, okay.
Just want to make a little bit more comments on that. So our agency has deployed approximately 48 LPR cameras in the last 3 weeks. That's a license plate reader camera. We're deploying another 48 of those in the next couple of weeks as well. So the advantage of that is that if you did have an issue with a vehicle that passed a school bus or committed an infraction like that, we could put that license plate number into our LPRs and kind of figure out the pattern that that vehicle drives. Where if we didn't have something like that, it could be one incident, and then you'd have to follow that bus and see if that person takes the same route or whatever. But if we had that information, so if you did use cameras on your buses, and I'm not sure that that is the best way to handle it, I think it's a possibility. It's certainly an option to do that. If you do that, I would recommend that those cameras be LPR cameras, so that it would capture the license plate of the vehicle that passed the school bus. Okay? Once that's done, like I said, that information would come into our real-time crime center. It could tell us if the vehicle is stolen. It could tell us if the owner of the vehicle has a suspended license, if the person has warrants for their arrest. So there's a lot of criteria that we can enter in the real-time crime center, and as that license plate comes by, it can give us that information. So my recommendation is if you do put cameras on your buses, that you require them to be LPR cameras, and that would give us access to that. Again, that would give us a pattern because, instead of a blue vehicle goes by, we would have the license plate. We would know where that person lives. We can put an unmarked vehicle on that vehicle earlier in the day before the bus routes start, or in the afternoon, whatever it might be, and follow that vehicle to see if they commit those infractions again and again. So I think that would be a big safety thing. Like Deputy Chief said, I think our PSAs would be, public safety announcements would be huge. I think that's something we have to do. With school being back in full session, you have a lot more school buses on the road than you did last year. So I think it's a learning curve again, with, people that recently got their license, people that moved down here, knowing, that you can't pass unless if there's a median, you don't have to, but if there's no median, you have to stop. The amount of traffic congestion because of the building on 43rd Avenue and 58th Avenue, 66th Avenue, I think that plays a factor into it. So I think there's a lot of factors that are affecting the safety of the transportation of our students, but everything that we mentioned, I think, are positive steps in moving forward to providing an increase in the safety of that. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Thank you for that information. With regard to the LPR cameras that you were mentioning, within your statement, you said that you're not quite sure that that would be the best way for us to handle this situation.
I think if you're...
It's That's okay. I think you said it was very helpful, but I think my follow-up would be, would there be a suggested better way?
I think my comment was that the cameras themselves might not be the best way. I know that your buses are equipped with GPS systems on there, and I think that's what the Deputy Chief was referring to earlier when we talked about it. Our community coach buses in town are equipped with GPSs. So to provide us with access to the GPS systems on the bus would give us real-time live feed as to where that bus is located. So that way, if there was an issue on a bus, not even regarding the transportation, if there was a major issue on a bus, we would know exactly where that bus is, as opposed to having to have somebody call in. It would just be, hey, we have an issue on bus 27. We could automatically find out where that bus is and start deploying resources to that, as opposed to having the bus driver call into transportation reaching out to law enforcement dispatch center, gathering that information, sending it to the law enforcement officer and having him respond. So that's what I mean when I said that. Both combinations of the GPS and the cameras, absolutely, me personally, I think that's a great idea. But to pick one over the other, I can't tell you which one would be better.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, yes,
Appreciate it. We want everybody to have the opportunity to speak, and we invited them to kind of let us know what we can do to help with the issue that we have, and also any suggestions that you have. So, Mark Shaw.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dr. Moore. Appreciate you guys having us out to speak tonight. Like your motto says, stronger together. I think that holds volumes to all the law enforcement agencies that are represented here tonight. Indian River Shores, obviously, is a very small community. We have one main road, so our 2 officers that are out in the 5.6 miles of A1A that we have is definitely going to cover most of our bus stops and school buses, but our guys, throughout the day, they're part of their directed patrols to follow the buses in and out. When I was preparing to come here tonight, I was actually looking online at some statistics, and one of the things that actually kind of shocked me was this was just the state of Florida. This was on Orange County Public School website, was that in the state of Florida, in a normal 180-day calendar school year, there's 2 million illegal passes of buses reported by drivers just in the state of Florida. So that's obviously a huge problem. We also have the license plate reading cameras. We are connected with the sheriff's office, so they have access to our information. We have access to theirs. Constantly use that to help make our streets safer. But I have no other comments. If you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And obviously, Mr. Barefoot, our former town mayor, appreciate everything you do. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Keith Touchperry.
Good evening, school board. Keith Touchberry, police chief for the city of Ellesmere. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be here tonight because school safety is a chief priority with all of us in Fellsmere. You know, we have the one elementary school on North Cypress Street. It's literally 2 blocks from the police department. Our officers were actually just there today giving a vaping presentation in the spirit of Vaping Month. And it was a good exercise for one of our newer officers who's never been in front of 100 fifth graders before. So he was a little nervous. I said, 150, 100, it doesn't matter. It's just, you know, you're giving the presentation. So we stand ready to support anything the school board does in the way of school bus safety. The awareness campaign, if you're going to launch any media, we'll certainly share all that. I know that Principal Echeria is very good at sending out information to our parents. And our parents are very dedicated, as all parents are, to their kids. Every year, as you know, we have to retrain them when it comes to entering and leaving our bus loop as we manage our traffic safety control process out in front of the school. And we assist the school resource officer from the sheriff's office. We have opportunities to educate kids. We have the school bus safety loop where the kids get picked up and drop off from the buses, and while they're waiting for the buses, we can spend time with them at that time, educating them on safety, you know, getting in and off the bus and so forth. As far as enforcement goes, Fellsmere is unique in that it is small and rural and somewhat isolated from the rest of the county. And if you've ever been to Fellsmere, you know that our roads are a lot more narrow than they are in other cities. And that's a traffic calming measure by design. The science behind that is the more narrow the road is, the slower traffic will go. And if you've ever had to make a turn from one street to another in Fellsmere, you know, literally you have to wait for someone to turn or maybe back up for them so that they can turn before you go. And this is just the way it is in Fellsmere. People understand that when they go back and forth to where they're going. I will say that the rush hour coming and going from Fellsmere tends to be off cycle from the rest of the county. Most of our residents are laborers or get to work early, and so our exodus out of the city is about 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning, and so the vast majority of our traffic is already out of the city when the school buses are coming and making their stops. Having said that, though, our officers still are very proactive when it comes to patrolling the school bus stops to make sure that everything is safe and secure there, and we have a very active presence at the school. I heard you mention earlier about statutes that are pending, and if you haven't looked at House Bill 179, I would encourage you to do so. We were somewhat talking about that with the cameras being affixed to the school buses, and in reading the bill, you'll find that there is a rebuttable defense that the driver who ran past the school bus was the registered owner, or the registered owner was the driver, let me rephrase that, a rebuttable defense. So it's similar to red light cameras in Florida, where if you're the registered owner or you blow a toll in Florida, guess who's getting that notice? The registered owner of that vehicle. And then it becomes a civil process that you have to go through, whether you're guilty or innocent, and how you choose to proceed at that point. This is one of those things that the Florida Police Chiefs Association has already reviewed extensively. Our legislative committee, of which I'm a member, have already reviewed that bill, and we've weighed in on the pros and cons of what we feel are the strengths and weaknesses of that bill. I'm assuming the Florida Sheriff's Association has also done the same. Its legislative session hasn't begun yet, so where that bill is right now, we don't know. But we would certainly encourage all school districts to look at that, and it just empowers you to enact that camera system as a school district if it's something that you want to do. And the devil's in the details, though, how you work out the management of that and so forth is what you need to answer. But again, we stand ready and committed, the city of Fellsmere, to protect our children in any way that you need assistance, and take any questions.
I'm just going to tell you where that bill is right now.
Okay.
It's been referred to the Judiciary Committee and now in Criminal Justice and Public Safety Subcommittee. Actually, what I've learned from going to Tallahassee is the earlier you can get up there to speak to something when it's in committee, the stronger it makes a statement.
Yes, that's in our playbook too, at the FPCA.
Yes, yes. So I appreciate the fact that you're following that, and I'll probably follow up with you on possibly going up there to speak or something.
Absolutely.
So appreciate that.
You're
Thank you. Anybody have a question?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Todd Finnegan. Sebastian?
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us. My name's Todd Finnegan. I'm a sergeant with the Sebastian Police Department. I supervise the school resource unit. In our city, we have 3 schools, 3 SROs, obviously. On behalf of Chief Acosta and Sebastian Police Department, we just want to say that we're 100% on board with this school bus safety initiative that's happening. So I think our patrol guys do a great job with traffic enforcement for the students and the buses and the vehicles that come in. I think we can continue to put forth that effort, and my school resource guys do a great job mentoring the children and always giving them tips on school bus safety. And I think we can do more as far as public safety announcements on social media and on local television to put that out and educate the public on, you know, the laws and rules regarding school bus traffic control devices and whatnot. But continued education to speak to the kids and the parents and to keep enforcing those laws that have to do with the school bus infractions on the road and whatnot. So I think if we continue to make that effort, we can, you know, keep the children safe. Obviously, it was a tragedy what happened down in St. Lucie County, and we don't want that to happen here, so pretty much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Monaco and John Peterson. Or is it Pedersen?
Second one.
Good evening, Chair Member Barefoot, board members, Dr. Moore, Mr. Teskey. Thank you for inviting us here today to be involved in this very important discussion. One of the good things about, I guess, going last is I get to echo everything my colleagues have already said. But from my perspective in the Vero Beach Police Department, we certainly support this initiative. I think it's two-pronged. It's education and enforcement. And just like to share one little story with you. I spoke with one of our traffic enforcement officers this morning, and we were talking about this topic, knowing that I would be coming here tonight, asking him what he sees out in the roads and has he been out there enforcing these types of violations of motorists passing our school buses. And he said just the other day that one of the school bus drivers called into dispatch and said that there was a black unmarked vehicle following him. And that just happened to be one of our traffic enforcement officers. So we are dedicated to be out there and continue enforcement. And I think the education piece is very important, whether that be with our students, our parents, and the motoring public. So we're here to support this initiative, and we're on board.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you very much.
I had a conversation with Sheriff Flowers last week, and part of the reason why I brought this up is because, you know, obviously we have this problem. What you said, 2 million car passes a year. That's really sad. And it happened to me yesterday. Yesterday, I saw there was 16 cars stopped. We were waiting on a bus that was way down the street, and someone passed me to the right, almost going into the ditch. So it's happening constantly. It's scary. Yes, I think PSAs are very important. We need to put that out. There has been a call before for cameras on buses. My concern is whether or not that will really be worth the cost. And you know what? If it's a child's life, it's worth the cost. I also know someone that I think it doesn't just affect the family of the child, it affects the person that actually hit the child. And people will say, oh, you know, it ruined my life, but had they known that fact before and really done something about it to prevent it, that's what we need to focus on, is the prevention versus the punishment. I mean, the punishment is part of the prevention, but we need to look at both of those things. So with that, do you want me to read the, statement? So on September 23rd, 2021, in St. Lucie County, Florida, a student was tragically struck and killed by a car while crossing the street to catch a school bus. When this occurred, the bus was stopped. The bus stop sign was up and the bus lights were flashing. On October 12th, in 2021, a Storm Grove Middle School student was clipped by a car after exiting a bus. Fortunately, this incident was minor and the student did not need to be transported for medical care for injuries. The vehicle that clipped the student drove into a grassy shoulder around the bus. Once again, when this incident occurred, the bus was stopped, the lights were flashing, and the stop sign was up. Over the last 18 months, there have been a limited presence of school transportation on our roads as a result of the pandemic. Now that school bus transportation is in full operation, it is clear that we need an increased awareness and re-education on the traffic rules that should be observed when drivers encounter school buses on the road. Additionally, review of school transportation safety protocols and procedures in order to determine if any modifications need to be made, we need to do. This item requests that the superintendent take the following actions. Review all school transportation safety protocols and procedures with students to ensure that they have a full understanding of the established safety measures. Meet with school transportation professionals to conduct a needs assessment related to safety in school transportation and make any needed changes in safety measures or protocols. Conduct a cost-benefit analysis of added cameras placed on the outside of school buses. Develop a community-wide campaign in partnership with all of our local law enforcement. Thank you all for being here. And I appreciate it. We got, I think, every agency, correct, here represented in our county, so we appreciate that. Working together with all of you, developing a community-wide campaign in partnership with local law enforcement that incorporates signage and video marketing to increase awareness of school transportation safety and traffic rules related to school transportation. Provide an update to the board on each action step on or before the superintendent's workshop in January of 2022. Now, since this has been posted, someone did call me and I think emailed the board too about adding monitors or adding a person for each bus. How many buses do we have every day on the road?
Through the chair, we're running 80 routes right now.
80 routes, and they run multiple times.
Each route, each bus while on the morning will run 3 routes. So 80 buses running basically 6 routes a day.
And so there is a big cost for whatever we do. If we put monitors on buses to help walk kids, if we put cameras on buses, whether or not that cost would really result in what we want to do, which is deter people from going around buses. But that is something I think the board needs to look at and consider, and so therefore that's why I'm making this request.
Okay, approve. Questions, comments?
Just,
Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Ms. Berenborg, and everyone for attending tonight. About a month ago, I think I emailed Dr. Moore and Jennifer Idolette and Mr. Teskey just about our concerns and so forth with buses and the incidents that were happening. And I know prevention is a key, and I think, Dr. Moore, you said you were talking about the social media we would be doing or the PSAs, or where are we with that now?
Through the chair, once this item is approved, Ms. Maddox has already started the mapping out of that awareness. We'll be working with the local law enforcement to really do a county-wide initiative, both social media, pushing it out throughout the county in a number of different forms.
Thank you. And just in collaboration with our sheriff department and our police department, just making sure when we take any of these steps that we're just checking to see which cameras are better or what we're going to do or the cost and so forth. But it's a really very, very important thing. And Ms. Berenborg, thank you for bringing it up. Thank you.
Hey, Mrs. Rosario?
Yeah, I don't know if we're all receiving the same information on the incidents that have happened locally, but it is timely for us to be able to do this. It is important. Thank you all for being here, for your support. I know that you all need to know that we support you in all that you do, and we can't do what we do here without you. So it really is appreciated. But I wanted to just mention about the bus safety campaign that we're going to go out for. I think it would be prudent of us, once we get that going, that it's not just a social media or email thing. Even if we were to take out an ad in the paper and make sure that it is known countywide that this is an effort from not just us, but all of the agencies represented here. That might take it a little step further
Or
in
TV.
terms of, even TV,
But
TV commercial.
That is the intent.
That's good.
Yeah. So if we do that, then I think that we would definitely get the message out there. So thank you for bringing this forth. I think it is needed. I'm excited already for what's to come in January so that we can hear the needs assessment so that we can move forward and keeping our kids safe.
Okay, this is great. I'm 100% behind it. Thank you to law enforcement for being here, everything you do in partnership with the district, and I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Do we have to have we have to have a motion
I
first?
thought we did have a motion to get it.
We didn't.
All right, well, I'd like to
I'll make
make
a motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
There you go.
Aye.
There it is.
Thank you
you,
very
gentlemen,
much.
for being here.
Thank
We
you very much.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
All right. We now come to citizen input. We have, looks like we have about 6, 7, 8 speakers this evening. Guidelines. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. Persons will be recognized in the order in which the requests were received. Persons may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizen input as indicated on the order of business, and for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda, and each board member discussion item as indicated on the order of business. Persons may only speak once about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer. Only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. And our first return guest this evening is Stanford Erickson.
Chairman Barefoot, members of the board, Superintendent Moore, thank you for permitting me and other citizens to present their views tonight. When I was attending my wife's niece's graduation at Harvard a few years back, I jokingly told my wife I had 10 geopolitical questions that I could ask any of her fellow graduates, and I could predict what they would say in each case. Not surprisingly, all the graduates I asked the questions gave the same answers, which I had predicted. Why? Because to get into Harvard and to survive Harvard, these brilliant students had to figure out what the elite education establishment wanted them to think. As a journalist, I covered education for 3 years for McGraw-Hill Publications. Back then and now, public education is politicized. The wealthiest among us understood this, and they did not send their children to public education. Less wealthy people homeschooled them. Charter schools are now increasing throughout the country. The bias in public education for the last 40 years or so is left of center. Unions have reinforced that. It is not surprising that Terry McAuliffe, a Democrat who is campaigning for governor in Virginia for the second time, recently said, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. All of us learn by being humble and listening to others. In the past, teachers were among our society's most educated people. Today, many of the parents and citizens are better educated and more experienced in world affairs and commerce than most educators. I personally have 2 master's degrees and managed media companies. I also was drafted and I had a master's degree, and for 1 year, 9 months, 8 days was a private. Our group, Education Action Alliance, includes a PhD in education who has served in the military, educators on the college and local level, elementary, secondary, and those who have been successful in business. Famed poet John Milton, in his essay in Extravaganza, wrote that cloistered virtue is of little value. Cloistered virtue is of little value. Many educators have been cloistered from the real world most of their careers. Many of this board have been cloistered from the real world for many years. Chairman Barefoot is an exception. It is important to depoliticize public education. It is also important for educators to begin paying more attention to those citizens and parents who understand what the real world is all about and why their children must be prepared to function successfully in the real world. The classroom is to educate young people and not politicize them into the way of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Next speaker is Rosemary Wilson. On deck, Michael Marsh.
Good evening. I'm Rosemary Wilson, live at 1490 Fifth Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida. Usually, a raise is a reward for a good job well done. Is the superintendent entitled to a 2% raise when we have no A-rated schools and ratings continue to drop? Why was the school board meeting canceled this month? And now we have a 40-page agenda as it was run off online this morning. And the board members complained about the lengthy meetings. How is it with such brilliance on the board? After all, we have not one, but 2 PhDs, that the curricula has wording and pictures of indoctrination and sexual indecency. You got to do your homework. Why use strong-armed bully tactics on parents that are concerned only about the quality education for their children? The leadership of elitist demagogues of the school board district of Indian River County will fail if you continue. By the way, Mr. Barefoot, the censure stands with an overwhelming vote by the Republican Executive Committee of Indian River County, 70-13. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Next speaker is Michael Marsh. On deck, Susan Meal.
That's my sheriff. How you guys doing this evening? My name is Mike for Liberty, and I wanted to come tonight and tell you guys, you know, if you go under the superintendent and you look at that hierarchy, you don't even have to come here and enjoy this giant echo chamber, Moms for Liberty. You have many other facets you can go through. If you have an ESC problem, you can reach out to the great folks. I just spoke to him. Did you know there's a parent engagement meeting coming up tomorrow? You guys should all come. You may learn something. Please invite Jennifer Pumpkin. It's put on by Dr. Cowie. Great. I am very satisfied with my school district of Indian River County. Let's talk numbers for a second. We had a success under Dr. Moore. 9% to 13% of the number of African Americans. Moms for Liberty, do you guys know that? And we're on track to meet the 18% that is required under this lawsuit. So I think we should give more a raise. Mr. Chairman, the board, I think Dr. Moore is doing great job. Now, also, this parent engagement committee that we have so many committees here under the school district. For everything you can think of, they put a committee in place. What we should talk about, if you guys watch the workshop, because that's the juicy part. This is nothing. The workshop is where it's at.
Mr. Marsh, make
Yes,
sure
sir.
you just direct your comments to the school board.
Oh, I'm sorry, these beautiful ladies here. So 259 students identify as homeless. We're past the mass, critical race theory, whatever is going on sexual there. I think we're past that here. I don't think they're teaching that here in the school district of Indian River County. But when do we get to the real issues at hand? I applaud Dr. Jones. I got an email from her. That is the problem that we need to focus on. Over 50% are elementary students. What are we going to do about that? If we are stronger together and we're done with the political pandering, are we going to move on to the real hot topics? Matter of fact, it's a shame the NAACP is not here tonight, because I combed through thousands of equity documents, HBCU emails. This new administration, or Dr. Moore, if you need to know anything about equity, Dr. Shafty is brilliant. We don't really care about that. If we did care, they would come to the workshops, they would come to the school board meetings. Matter of fact, everyone, Thursday, we can listen to the recommendation. And as far as report cards go, we the community, we think this superintendent's doing great. School board, for the most part, most of you is doing really good. But it's time that we all get together and look at real issues. 53 years, it was screamed out to Dr. Moore and the rest of the equity committee. Are we talking about that? It's time that we, the community, we can do stuff. Why is everything the school district of Indian River County's job? Why is that? What do we do as the community? So at the end of the day, none of these people, including NAACP, speak for these beautiful interracial queens on the back of my shirt. You know why? Because I leave it to the superintendent and everyone that works hard in this school district of Indian River County. God bless. Educationally yours, Mike for Liberty.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Susan Meal, you're... On deck is Melissa Burdick.
So I had a couple of conversations with Mr. Meyer recently, and we agree on a number of things. I'm pleased to report that. One is very, very critical, and it has to do with the selection of new curriculums. So we know what we went through with EAL, and timing is a big factor. And at the crux of the problem we have is the Florida Department of Education and its timeline for recommending new curriculums to you all for our community to select. And at the bottom line of that problem is that they believe you can wait till July 1st to order your new curriculums. And that's bad for teachers, that's bad for staff, and that's bad for children. So I'm here tonight to ask you to become proactive in an effort to change the timeline of the DOE. I've sent out some emails to my contacts in Tallahassee and at the DOE, and I would really like it if you would do the same. I don't have time to give you the details, but one of them is the date at which we need to start reviewing curriculums, which means we have to review a lot of curriculums, and some of them may not even be approved by the state. And we go through the same thing we did with HMH and Amplify and all those problems. It's probably too late to impact the math timeline because we're in it now. And we have a number of representatives who are participating on the committee to select the new math curriculum, and we're very pleased at the cooperation level that you've shown. But social studies is coming up next year, and believe me, I've got parents and community members coming out of the woodwork that want to get involved in that selection process. Because as we know, there's the devil in the details, and they want to see what the details are in social studies. So if you can use your state associations, your school board associations, your superintendents associations here in Florida, if you could join with other county school districts and try to pressure them to get that social studies curriculum selection process timeline changed, it would be great for everyone, including the parents and the community. And I'd just like to finish by saying that if you pass the changes in the public comment rules, I wouldn't have been able to bring that up today because it's not on your agenda.
Thank you, Melissa Burdick. Next speaker, Lamar Notargiacomo.
So I wish I had some good merchandise to wear. You look super sharp, Michael, over there, so it's awesome. So I just wanted to address, and I think it's a good segue after Susan's addressing you, is that I wanted to read from the National School Board Association most recent letter dated October 22nd. As all of you know, there has been extensive media and other attention recently around our letter to President Biden regarding threats and acts of violence against school board members. We wanted to write to you directly to address this matter. On behalf of the NSBA, we regret and apologize for that letter. To be clear, the safety of school board members, other public officials, and educators and students is our top priority, and there remains important work to be done on the issue. However, there was no justification for some of the language included in the letter, and anybody is aware at this point that the language they're referring to is calling parents domestic terrorists. I continue. We should have had a better process in place to allow for some consultation on a communication of this significance. We apologize also for the strain and stress this has caused you and your organization. As we've reiterated since the letter was sent, we deeply value not only the work of the local school boards that make important contributions within our communities, but also the voice of parents who should and must continue to be heard when it comes to the decisions about their children's health, education, and safety. So with that being said, as I know I'm running out of time, as I always do, I would point to your letter here, the new rules for public input, which was dated 9/28, that in fact says this here, their notice from your national board says nothing about persons speaking to non-agenda items which are germane to the work of the school board, which is what you propose in your work. Also, this NSBA recognizes this First Amendment right for parents, and should all members of this board you should recognize this as well. The current proposed limits set on free speech usurp our First Amendment rights. In essence, if this school board goes through with this, you are going rogue against your national organization at this point. Also, I would point out that all the citizens that have spoken out in these meetings over the 18 months, and I mean all, everybody I disagree with, all did not concede these First Amendment rights to you. In fact, just the opposite has happened. They took them back. That cancel culture in Indian River County does not have more freedom than the First Amendment. And you can see it in this room right now. You can see it in what's happened out there. You can see it in the fact that my bag has to be searched when last May it didn't. However, if your new policy is enacted from this, then we will not have been allowed to have read this to people who do not scour the internet looking for information out. And had Mrs. Rosario not brought it to the agenda, I would not have been allowed to see and speak tonight to share this public information with you because
Thank you, Mrs.
they
Burdick. Your
were
time's up.
for us. Thank you.
Next speaker, Lamar. Dr. Giacomo, on deck, Tiffany Justice.
Thank you. Good evening. Am I on? Doesn't feel like I'm on. For years, I've attended school board meetings as a parent, grandparent, and as a tax-paying concerned citizen. I consider it an honor and part of my civic duty to hold all of our elected and unelected officials accountable for their votes and their decisions. I've heard much discussion about stakeholders in our school district, but have yet to hear any of our school board members mention that parents and taxpayers are the primary stakeholders because our children and our tax dollars are at stake. We've been mocked, ridiculed, disrespected, ignored, and treated as second-class citizens while members of the board demand absolute decorum and threaten to have us removed from the building simply for expressing approval of speakers by applause. Something that is allowed during every other portion of the business meeting except during public comment. You have used the media as a weapon against moms and concerned citizens who attend public business meetings because they say things you do not want to hear, and then you play the victim, squandering and misusing the resources of the sheriff's office to make yourselves feel safe, even though there has not been a single credible threat made against any one of you. How much does it cost to have 6 or 8 sheriff's deputies standing guard over parents during school board meetings? Clearly, it is meant for purposes of intimidation. And by the way, we back the blue. I love you guys, appreciate you. I think it's a misuse of the sheriff's office. Missouri, Ohio, and Pennsylvania have all ended their association with the National School Board Association memberships because of Biden's Justice Department labeling of parents as domestic terrorists. Is the School Board of Indian River County a member of this NSBA? If so, I hope you will immediately follow their example and terminate your association with this organization. Parents are not terrorists. We are doing our jobs, overseeing our children's education to the best of our ability. We've heard that the board, and Dr. Moore in particular, repeat the same mantra: every child should feel safe, respected, comfortable, etc. But his words are empty when our children are being indoctrinated with political correctness at the expense of the highest quality education available, and when they're being threatened by gang members from other counties who attend our schools under the banner of school choice. What kind of a background check do teachers undergo? Apparently not a stringent enough check. The media seems complicit in downplaying the events of October 10th, where 2 brand new Indian River County teacher hires were arrested after firing 4 shots at a man who was running away, hitting him once in the back. Is the goal of the superintendent to import Miami-style promise program where assaults and thefts of under $1,000 at schools do not have to be reported to police, and sexual assault committed by teachers being covered up, putting our children in harm's way? Bars and graphs and charts are good for eye candy, but present a biased view of what's going on in the classroom. We want to protect our kids for real, not just make them feel safer. By the way, there is an organization of dads, 40 of them went into Louisiana schools, and they are serving as hall monitors. I hope we implement the same thing here. Wake up, dads, get involved. Thank you.
Mrs. Justice, you're
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Justice. I'm the co-founder of Moms for Liberty, a national nonprofit grassroots organization that helps parents to advocate effectively for parental rights. I am also the mother of 4 children in the school district of Indian River County. Today was a wonderful day for my family, Dr. Moore. My son was awarded the Student of the Month for warm-heartedness. And it was such a wonderful thing. And as he came home today and he handed me the paper, he said, first words out of his mouth, "Mom, are you going to come?" And I said, "No, buddy, I'm not allowed." And he said, "What do you mean you're not allowed? Mom, I want you to be there when I get Character of the Month." And I said, "No, I'm not allowed." I called the principal and she said, "Parents are not allowed on school campuses." I said, "Wow, that's really weird," because today on Twitter, I saw at Treasure Coast Elementary School that the Sebastian Women's Club came and judged a pumpkin decorating contest. Now, this is nothing against the Sebastian Women's Club. Thank you for participating in our schools. This is about the fact that visitors are on our school campuses and parents are not allowed to come. Why? You can have as many parent engagement meetings as you would like, but until you open your classrooms and campuses to parents, they are all just words. Allow parents back into classrooms. Our children are missing, we are missing children's milestones. I am not alone here. I'd like to read some comments from the Facebook page after I posted today that I was not going to be able to attend my son's event. My son's behavioral therapist cannot come to help him to stay on task and not be a distraction or disruption to others, but strangers can walk freely through campus. Rosewood Elementary School. This mother pulled her child out 3 weeks ago. This is my son's school about today. I was denied to come to be a part of the Halloween party in his class. I'm really upset. They allow random people in the school, but me as the parent can't be a part of my child's school party. My daughter won the contest for this. So I asked if we can volunteer to help at the pizza party. I was told the district says parents still can't volunteer. I have requested the visitor logs for every elementary school in this district. I am sure there will be a $15,000 fee for my public records request, as well as quite the runaround in getting the information, and probably some legal reason why I can't have it. You don't have to provide it for me if you don't want to. Take a look at it yourself. If you are allowing visitors into schools and you are not allowing parents into schools, you are not putting parents first in their children's education. Allow parents back onto school campuses. Allow them immediately back on school campuses. Do not make us not be able to participate in our children's education. Children need their parents. Parents are a huge driver of student success. You should be rolling out the red carpet for us, and I will not stop until every parent in America can get back into their child's classroom.
Thank you. Well, that ends citizen input. Comment from any board members or Dr. Moore?
Let me go. Just some brief comments, and I would like to start by asking Mr. Meyer to review the process we are currently using for the adoption of math material. And once he reviews that process, I'll have additional comments.
Thank you. Through the chair, as Ms. Meal stated, we did have a great conversation, and as I presented to the board in August, learning the lessons that we did together through our ELA adoption and understanding the constraints that are put onto every Florida school district by the Florida statutes and the Department of Education rules. What we're endeavoring to do this year is to bring to the board in January a rank-ordered list of the math adoption potential materials, and you will be able to see the hard work of the committee, which does include many more community members this year than it did last year. And from there, we'll have to sit and wait, right? We have to sit and wait until the Department of Education approves the final list, which by statute is supposed to be done by April 1st. That will most likely scratch a couple of products off of our list, and we'll be left with a rank order list that the board will bring back to the board for final approval at their first meeting in April, which will put us at a position to procure the books months earlier than we did last year, and hopefully keeping us out of the challenge that we were in with Amplify arriving right at the beginning of school. The ELA materials that we did procure early because they didn't have an issue, the secondary materials did make it on time. But honestly, some of the materials that we ordered generally, like the reorders from Florida School Book Depository that we ordered in June, did not make it in time. So it's going to be incumbent upon us to understand the situation that we're in and get things ordered as quickly as possible. But I don't disagree with Ms. Meal. It is very disappointing The districts are not given a list until April 1st. Quite honestly, our teams are reviewing products that may not even make the state's list. And I hate to say we're wasting time. We're not wasting time because we're doing the work that's necessary for the benefit of our kids. But it certainly would be a lot easier on us if there was just a list that was already finalized by the Department of Education and we had enough time to review it ourselves, procure the materials, and train. I think that's what Ms. Meal is speaking to. But please rest assured that the process that we brought in August that we're currently doing is the most aggressive that I've seen and will put us in the best position to learn from what happened last year given the current situation.
Right.
And the only other comment I have is as it relates to Ms. Justice, couldn't agree more. And we are in the process of opening our campuses up. I think we've been through a very, very difficult time over the last 18 months and did proceed with caution regarding ensuring that our campuses are in fact taking every precaution associated with the pandemic. We are in a great place as a community associated with COVID. So the mask requirement for our teachers expires actually this Friday, so that regression comes back. And then we'll be pushing out information very shortly regarding the opportunities for parents to be engaged, volunteers to be engaged. The truth of the matter is, as we move forward, there's a volume of work that needs to be done. We need every individual possible to support and help in that work. So that work is coming forward.
Mrs. Rosario?
I'm confused, Dr.
Yeah.
Moore. What work has to be done to allow parents to visit their schools and celebrate during awards and celebrations?
Through the chair, a celebration and award, I don't know why that's an activity in which we're not currently going to. So I'd have to see why that wasn't allowed. I can't give you a good answer for that because quite honestly, that was never the intent. So if you're getting an award, I've seen that on social media. I have seen that while I'm in schools, just being honest with what I have seen. So that there's not a good explanation for that I can give you. What we're rolling out is opening the schools back up in terms of the volunteering, connecting with your students. It's been a long time since parents have been out as well as everyone else. We do still proceed with caution because there's yet another anticipated spike, but at the same time, while we have it in a place that is good, we want to maximize every opportunity to provide access to our public education system.
Because we do know that the number one, and I know that you agree, the number one success for students is parent involvement.
I
And
have
if we don't
$2 who can
open
agree
up-
with
if-
that, yes.
If we don't open up our schools, I don't understand what the process would be to do that or how long this process would be, but it would be incumbent upon us to
No,
make
it-
sure that our parents get involved.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
please?
move.
Pardon me?
So move.
Dr. Jones, a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry.
Aye, sorry.
Okay. All right, there was one item pulled from the consent agenda, 13A, which was discussed. The next item is what is on the agenda for action. And the first item on the agenda is item 14B, and that item is
13B?
It's 13B, correct. That item and I would like to make a motion to request to approve a 2% salary adjustment for the superintendent for the 2021-22 school year. This adjustment is equivalent to the 2% increase provided to administrators for the 2021-22 school year. I'd like to make that motion. Is there a second?
You open it, oh, go ahead.
Second.
All right, discussion.
Discussion. Me? You want me to go
Yes,
first?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a few questions, actually. I think I want to start with Mrs. Diagresta, please. Mrs. Diagresta, what is the definition of a contract?
Yes, ma'am. In general terms, a contract is an agreement between two parties for something to be accomplished for a certain time period and for a certain price.
Is it legally binding?
Generally, yes. I'm a lawyer, I always hedge. Generally, yes. Some contracts aren't binding. Generally, yes.
When a contract is created between lawyers, is it legally binding?
Generally, yes.
What are the implications of violating a contract or going against what is written in a particular contract?
Some contracts will contain specific penalties for violation, remedies for violation. Some contracts will not. If there are specific provisions in the contract, then those would apply. If there are not specific penalties in a contract, then typical contract law says you prove up your damages, whatever your damages are, is what you would be paid if a claim is filed.
Okay. And what kind of union or other contractual, any other contractual concerns might there be a precedent set if a particular contract is ignored, overlooked, or violated?
You said union, a union contract?
Union contract, a work contract, a consulting contract, any contract that is written.
Okay, so it's going to depend upon the contract. We'll take the collective bargaining agreement, since you mentioned that as a specific example. If a collective bargaining agreement provision is ignored, let's say just ignored by the parties, one or the other parties to that collective bargaining agreement could file a grievance with regard to that violation or that ignoring of a requirement. If someone does not file a claim or move to enforce the contract, it's possible for that new behavior to be considered a past practice that hasn't been challenged. And so just simply by acquiescence to that, sometimes a collective bargaining agreement can be changed. I'm sure there'd be litigation over that. If there were a consulting agreement and one or both parties violated the contract, typically there are some provisions in a consulting agreement which say ignoring a provision or failing to enforce a particular provision isn't necessarily a waiver, and even if you ignore a provision for a year, you can still move forward to enforce it once you figure out, okay, now I'm going to enforce my contract right. So it really depends upon the language in the contract. So I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but it depends a little about the type of contract it is.
No, that's okay. You've provided,
Okay.
you've provided some information. Thank you. Okay. Dr. Moore, I have a few questions for you, sir. With this recommendation, is this something that came from you?
Through the chair, no.
Is this something that would, that you would be interested in opening up your contract for renegotiation?
Through the chair, not at this point.
Would you ever recommend to this board to ignore a written contract in order to increase salary? Or would you wait until the contract is up and then negotiate?
Through the chair, I don't think that's the intent of the item. That would probably be a better question for the maker of the item.
No, I'm asking you as the CEO, would you ever recommend for the board, not in relation to this, just in general, would you ever recommend for the board to consider a raise in salary when there is already a written contract in place for a particular person or entity or group or organization?
Well, through the chair, I think I have, yes, I think I would. If it was warranted based on the work that was being done, you would take the necessary steps to make it legal and binding, but to make the recommendation based on the body of the work that's been done, absolutely.
But that legal and binding would necessitate a renegotiation of the contract. There wouldn't be a violation of the current written code.
Correct.
Or
So
written contract.
let me just be blunt. I'm not asking to renegotiate a contract. I think the conversation at the last workshop was to provide a 2% adjustment to my salary, which would be appreciated, absolutely. College is expensive. But not negotiate or modify any other parameters within my contract. Not to extend, as I said during the workshop 2 weeks ago, I'm not asking for an extension. I'm not asking for additional time. I'm not asking to modify any of the parameters in the contract. I haven't spoken to any board members about, hey, let's get me a raise or renegotiate. That hasn't been my intent. It was discussed at a workshop. I was asked to bring the item under Mr. Barefoot's name. So therein lies the intent, and there is the item.
No, I appreciate that. I just want to make it clear because I've heard from many people in the community who are assuming that this is coming from you, so I want to make it clear that it was not coming from you and that you are not interested in renegotiating your contract, or at least that was never the intent of the item. So I appreciate the clarification on that.
I understand the parameters of my contract and working within those particular parameters. If there was an opportunity to say, do you want to renegotiate the contract? That would take time and consideration for me. That would be two different parties entering into negotiations to determine the confines of the responsibilities of work. I don't see this 2% as that at all. I'm not proffering any modifications or changes to my contract.
So in your contract on page 7, there is a letter D, and it states that part of the requirements for your work is to receive a Chief Executive Officer Leadership Development Program certificate. Are you aware of what that certificate is? Have you received that certificate, or is that in progress?
Through the chair, that was in progress. That was not offered during my first year during the pandemic. So as I went to begin that initiative, completely didn't happen. So they're just now starting that back up.
Okay. So there is, I encourage board members to read this because this section actually states that the superintendent shall participate in and receive this particular certification pursuant to section 1001.47 Florida statutes. And when I went to that statute, it's very specific. That statute speaks to elected superintendents, not hired superintendents. So that's something that I found pretty contradictory to his contract. It's really technically not supposed to be for you, but it's written in your contract. So assumingly, you're going to get the program certificate as soon as that opens up. So I don't understand how that would work, but then the contract also talks about 2 phases. It says that upon completion of both phases that you're supposed to do in here, I only see phase 1, which is this certificate program, but it reads, upon successful completion of both phases, the superintendent shall be compensated in accordance with this section 1001.475B, Florida statutes, where he shall be paid a salary incentive of not less than $3,000 nor more than $7,500 based upon his performance evaluation. So what are these phases? I know what 1 is. What is phase 2?
1 is relatively straightforward. The second phase is an extensive amount of work. You actually submit a project. It is ultimately evaluated, and then you receive compensation based on that evaluation. As Mr. Bass was a elected superintendent, he might be able to give you a little bit more insight on that, which I had no intention of doing that.
Is that phase part of that certificate program? Or is that phase something else that was not written in your contract?
That is a additional phase that you could choose to do for compensation.
Within the certification program?
Right.
Through the chair, yes, Dr. Moore is correct. That is solely optional for the superintendent to do. It is extensive. It took me roughly 18 months to get it completed, and you do get a monetary bonus each year based on what you score. I believe the maximum is potentially $7,000. So being an elected superintendent, not having any being at the mercy of the state as to your salary increases, it is something that I jumped in and did, but it was solely optional.
Okay, thank you. So that kind of clarifies a little bit as to this certification program, though it was negotiated in your contract, it really was intended for elected superintendents, so that kind of makes sense. The superintendent's base salary, according to his contract, says that he shall receive an annual salary of $180,000 from December 20th through June 30th, 2021. Beginning with the fiscal year July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, so we are now entering, or we are in this fiscal year, and each subsequent fiscal year thereafter, if the superintendent receives an overall performance rating of satisfactory or greater on the evaluation described in paragraph 7 herein, then he shall receive for that first fiscal year the same percentage wage increase, if any, on the same basis granted to the other 12 administrators of the district. So, Dr. Moore, I've told him this a million times. I wholeheartedly support the superintendent, wholeheartedly believe that he is the man for the job to change this district. He knows that. This is not personal, but I cannot support this. It is in violation of his contract. His contract very clearly states that after this year in 2022, he is then, with a satisfactory performance, then shall he receive a fiscal year, a percentage wage, which would be that 2% equivalent to the other district administrators. I just think that we are heading down the wrong path of thinking that it is okay to violate the law, the legal letter of the law, by ignoring executive orders, by ignoring Department of Health regulations, by ignoring, emergency orders, by ignoring Department of Education mandates, and now by ignoring a written contract. Again, nothing personal, Dr. Moore, but I don't know that why we keep doing this. We have contracts, we would be setting a terrible precedence if we move forward with doing this. What's to say that some other person that we have, or group, entity, that we have a contract with would just say, so what, I'll just ignore it. I'll do what I want. Teachers in our classroom, we're setting a precedence to say, I could teach whatever I want. So what if there's a written code or a written rule or a written policy or a written anything? We are supposed to be above reproach. We have a written contract that we should honor. We are not talking about giving a performance bonus or a one-time bonus. This is what is put on the agenda is a salary increase, and that salary increase is not supposed to be now, it is supposed to be in 2022. So I will end my comments there.
Dr. Jones.
Dr. Moore, your first year here, I know you started in December of 19, but then you were on your own January of 2020. Was there an evaluation done at the end of that year?
Through the chair, the end of last school year, there was not the previous school year. It was just an update. So as the contract listed, and that was something that I put into place just to begin to create the actual process. The first evaluation was the end of this year, which was my first full year.
Okay, I'm sorry, and board members provided feedback.
Okay.
But it wasn't considered the same kind of evaluation as now.
As far as that certification, I'm not sure if Mr. Bass was up there at the time, but I know that would be, even though you're not elected, it would be a good one. We used to host that in Gainesville, the FHSA. All the superintendents would come in and so forth. So, Mr. Gressa, just to get input from you on the timeline there, as far as Obviously, satisfactory, 4.3 out of 5, not an issue. So anything that you want to respond to here that Ms. Rosario brought up for clarification?
I think the overarching legal issue is whether the school board can increase the superintendent's compensation as set forth in this agreement. And a contract is an agreement between two parties. And if the two parties agree, then the compensation can be increased. I think once in my career, and it had to do with a collective bargaining agreement, a school board or a superintendent offered an increase as part of a collective bargaining agreement. It was not to all the members of the collective bargaining agreement, and they rejected it. So I think, yes, can a party reject something like this? Absolutely. But if two parties can agree to an increase in compensation, then it's not illegal to do it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Berenborg?
Sure. So let me just state the way she put it. So it's not a contract violation then if we do something like this, correct? I think that's what Mrs. Rosario was saying. It would violate the contract that we have with him if we decide to give him and let me say it correctly, 2% salary adjustment.
Correct. The contract does not prohibit you from ever changing it during the term of the agreement. If the parties can agree, you can revise the terms and conditions in the agreement. So it would not be a violation, it would be a revision to the agreement.
Okay, and also, I guess this is for Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore, this is a 2% adjustment that's being asked for. What percentage adjustment did we just give all the administrators in the district?
I would say in April or May of this year, we gave a 2% raise for all of last school year, and then an additional 2% for this school year. So over the course of the last 7 months, those administrators received a overall 4% increase.
Okay, and then how about our teachers union and our CWA?
We entered into a very lucrative contract with both CWA as well as our teachers union, a sliding scale for CWA. Mr. Bass, do you have that specific information? So it is significant. Some of them received up to 9%, depending on where they started in their compensation. Some receive 4%, and then 2%, and then they reduce a half hour of work in year 3. CWA also significant. I think it was 4 and 2.5 over 2 years.
Okay, and then was the 2% for our administrators that we did back in May, any sort of change in their contract? Do we have to enter into a different contract, or it was just a salary adjustment?
It was a salary adjustment, which was reflected in the salary handbook.
Okay. And seeing that we just went through a pandemic and your first year was quite a challenge, I understand the concern about whether or not, as long as our attorney's telling me this isn't a violation, and we've done this for every other employee in our district, I don't see why we can't do this for you.
Thank you.
If we've done it for everybody else in the district and it's not a violation of the contract.
Well, there's not much else to say. As we discussed at length this afternoon, a 4.3% average score where 3 is satisfactory is about as good as it gets in the environment that you found yourself in. Back in January of last year, I've had employment contracts, they're revised all the time. Sometimes even people give money back if it's under circumstances that are warranted. But in your case, as I think you heard from everybody through the evaluations that each of us gave you, and then the consolidated evaluation that across the board you've done a very good job. And as I've said publicly, I applaud your energy, your diligence. Being hired as a quote-unquote reformer and then being asked to reform a district that all of a sudden was hit with a pandemic was a challenge to any CEO in any business, any place in this country. And so I certainly am in favor of this 2% increase. So with no further comments, I'd like to call the question. All in favor of the 2% increase signify by saying yes.
Do we need a motion?
You have
I made the motion.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear it. Go ahead. Getting tired.
Yes.
Yes and yes, 3 yes.
Yes.
No.
All right, the motion carries 3-1. All right. Now, the next item, and I have to make sure I do this correctly. Bear with me for a minute. We're going to elevate your discussion item, Mrs. Rosario, for action. And there's also, what's being added here is policy number 0169.1, entitled Public Participation Portion at Board Meetings, or policy, excuse me, at board meetings, as was discussed at length this afternoon. I would like to make a motion to removal of policy 0169.1 from November 16th public hearing to action, and I would like a second to that motion.
I'll second that.
I will provide some context, if that's all right.
I was just saying we needed to provide context.
We had a lengthy and productive conversation this afternoon about that policy in particular. There are 3 other policies that are up to be considered at the November 16th meeting, one surrounding workshops, one surrounding meetings, and one surrounding minutes, to which there are edits but no change. This particular policy underwent a number of suggested changes. In discussing this further, I think we all felt for various reasons that it was not necessary, that the objective here is to provide enough time to do the business of the board. I think many members in the community, while they supported it, there were other members who felt that this, somehow or another there was some nefarious reason for doing this. There was not. The reason for doing it is to provide enough time for the board, the minutes of to do the business of the board. As we'll discuss under discussion, we may want to consider starting the meetings earlier, but it makes no sense to have a separate session for non-agenda items and then start a business meeting and then have discuss citizen input on agenda items. You're not going to take any more time. There's still all those items, wherever they might fall, and that's why I recommended and we discussed, but each can speak for themselves, that we just remove that policy and leave things the way they are. So I would invite my colleagues to speak to that if they so choose. Mrs. Berenborg.
Yes. I think the timing on this was not good. I think with the vibe in the nation, the vibe in the community, we are here to listen to citizens. And good, bad, and ugly, we need to listen. And I think a lot of people voiced their opinion here in the last, since this has been up, and really brought some really good points up, you know, about cameras and why they should be on, and about, you know, people being able to speak to items that are not on our, couple items I wrote down tonight because I do want to follow up on those. And the only other way we're going to know that is if somebody emails us or calls us. So I think it's important that we keep things as they were. I think we have some good rules in place. Just enforce them as the chair. And I think we'll have very civil and good meetings with lots of dialogue that we need to hear.
Dr. Jones, any comments?
Well, we said a lot at the workshop today, and I brought this up September 28th, and it was a 5-0 vote to bring it to policy that evening. And so obviously there was concern about the business of the board, and that took a lot of discussion, being in this district or this community for over 40 years. I can tell you that, putting our students first is our priority, and we want to continue to do that. As far as the citizen input, no one ever said that you violating a First Amendment right. You could still say what you wanted to say with consent and action. And we do listen to everybody, and we do get emails from everybody, and we do get phone calls from everybody. And there are different sides. Why aren't you getting the business of the board done? Why is this happening? Why are the same people saying this and saying that? And all the things that we're dealing with. So, listening to parents for me as an educator was crucial. It was essential. When the school improvement teams began and school advisory council began a long time ago, a lot of principals were saying, oh, parents, I'm thinking, come on in. I'll take the help. It's what we need to do. If we do it together, now, dealing with parents as an administrator for 25 years, you always didn't agree, but you can disagree respectfully. And I think that's the one thing that was brought up at one time, I think in the September meeting. I'll have to look back. But there was no intent about saying, well, you couldn't say that or you couldn't say that. The items of consent and action, that's where I want to hear things as far as we are voting on those through consent or we are voting on those through action. Those are key. We have all of our supporting material out there, but the emails you send or the calls you make or whatever you do to communicate with us, Publix or whatever it is, that's what we need to hear. Now, these other things, we all know they've been out there, and these platforms are out there, and they're going to keep coming back. So I just ask, and we talked about this today, Mr. Barefoot, again, it's essential that we keep a focus of what we need to do. As board members said this afternoon, we've got a lot of work to do. We held our own during this pandemic. Certainly have some things to do, especially in math. We've always said that. But when the parents and the principals and everybody works together, I mean, I lived it. I've seen it. That's what it needs to be. And those who aren't speaking out, they do exist. They do exist. They can't get here because of work, or they can't get here because of childcare and so forth. So, again, we're listening to both sides. I never wanted to stomp on anyone for anything. I've been listening for 40-some years, and I'll continue to do so. But, decorum is important. The thing with the NSBA and FSBA, I'm sorry that happened. Our Florida School Board Association wrote back quickly. That's not what we're about. Ms. Messina, who's the president, used to be on the FHSAA board, and I know her personally. She called me. That's not what we are about. So I say, that's fine. Chairman Barefoot and the board talked about this today, but let's do it together instead of confrontation. Let's do it together so that we can really see what the input is and where we can go. What Ms. Meal brought up, I wanted to say hallelujah. I have dealt with that as an executive director of secondary and as a principal. We get our recommendations in, we don't know if they're approved. And it takes forever and forever and forever. So yes, I will follow up on that. It's important. But just know that everyone out there is saying, come on, let's put the business of the board, listen to our citizens, and keep moving forward in non-confrontational ways, because I do respect people who are speaking. Don't always agree, but I do respect people and what they are saying, and I take that to heart. When moms and dads and guardians and foster parents, everybody out there, we talked about our homeless students today, come together to say, you know what, we can do this together. We will be the literacy capital of the world. We will continue to look at this. We will move forward. So, I'm fine with that, Mr. Barefoot, as long as we move forward. Thank you.
Mrs. Rosario?
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of pulling this, wait, that's where you're pulling it, right?
Right.
So many changes. And then, of course, as we discussed in November during our organizational meeting, we will discuss then possibly changing the meeting and starting it a little bit earlier, which wouldn't be too much earlier. I would prefer that than what was proposed earlier or what's in there now. I certainly would want us to keep things as is. I'm not a proponent of moving input that is not, or that does not pertain to our consent or action agenda items to the end of a meeting, which is one of the reasons why I proposed it being at this pre-agenda meeting in the first place, because I thought it would be the better of the two evils. But essentially, I would not want that as well. I prefer everything to be together as it was this evening. So if I have to compromise on that, we'll go a little bit earlier, that would be fine.
All right, having heard from anybody, I will call the question. All in favor of the removal of policy 0169.1 from the November 16th public hearing? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody's opposed, that carries 4-0. And just, this may or may not be relevant, but I've sat on the board of a public high school in Vermont for the last 9 years. It's the second or third largest high school in Vermont. It's a public high school. Vermont is school choice. Kids come from all over to go to this high school. In Vermont, money follows the student, so you could come from Burlington to Manchester, and the money comes with you. There was a commencement address given this year, and I was at the commencement, obviously. And I'd just like to read it, because I think it's, you can change some of the words perhaps, but it builds a little bit on what Doc Jones just said. Academics are important. The experiential education of athletics, arts, and service and leadership opportunities are important, but it's the community. The constant act of caring for and valuing every member of our extended school family that imprints those lessons on the hearts and minds of Indian River County students. As State Senator Keisha Rahm told the class of 2021 at commencement, as we know well in Vermont, in freedom there is unity, and in unity there is freedom. It's getting there together that's the hard part, but the part worth striving for. I think that's telling, because we've had a tough last few months around here. And I think that, we all want to do the right thing, but when there's disagreement, maybe not in the end result, but in the tactics or the path to get there, that's the hard part. But that's the part that's worth striving for, as this quote says. So I thought it was certainly relevant to the environment that we've been. So kudos to Ms. Rahm, who's a very interesting person, by the way. And as you know, Vermont is an interesting state, given the politics. So we now, it's your turn, Mrs. Rosario. You have requested your discussion item be moved to action, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to put this on the agenda as a discussion item, but then realized that if there's action to be taken, we wouldn't be able to take it as a discussion item. I talked with Dr. Moore about this as well. We're all aware of the letters that were put out there, the initial letter from the NSBA, and then the follow-up letter from the FSBA. So not taking into consideration the most recent letter from the NSBA apologizing for their errors, but only to put this on the record, or at least for us to discuss with regards to the membership that we hold with the FSBA. As members of the FSBA, I think it would be really, really important for us to stand together with the leadership of the FSBA and support Andrea Messina in her work and the leadership that they have provided in responding against the NSBA when they did. It was very quick, it was very swift, it was straight to the point, it was supportive of local law enforcement, it was supportive of First Amendment rights, it was supportive of parents, concerned citizens speaking at board meetings, it was supportive of lively, respectful, and civil discourse, it was supportive of open meetings laws, and so on and so forth. So I just would like to get your feedback on what you all think about us creating a letter, maybe from our board chair on behalf of the entire board, I don't know if Dr. Moore, I think he probably wants this to be a board thing. But for us to just send a letter of saying, thank you for your leadership, we support the FSBA as members, you need to hear from our voice. Because when she speaks on behalf of her members, and we are her members. And when I say she, I mean Andrea Messina, but I collectively, I mean the entirety of the organization. And I have spoken on many occasions. I don't believe in every single tenet and belief of the FSBA, but on this particular item, I think that they were spot on. I spoke with Andrea. I gave her my personal commendation for it, but I think as a board, it would be the right thing to do for us.
You know, the one thing, just to add to what you said, when the letter came out, I didn't realize it, maybe I should have, that before this letter, FSBA was not supportive of the
Correct.
stand taken by the NSBA by withholding its dues.
That's right.
And a number of districts in the state of Florida, I don't remember which ones, have also withheld their dues because they were not in agreement with the National School Board Association.
That is correct.
So this wasn't just triggered by, you know, this letter that was recently sent to the Biden administration. This has been an issue for our association for a while.
Yes, and they've been withholding their dues, I think, since July. So you're absolutely right. And why they have been doing this since July, there might be other things going on. But we pay dues to FSBA, so we have to show support for the decisions that they are making in this area.
Other comments, Dr. Jones?
Some of you probably saw the email she sent yesterday.
Yeah.
And it basically just stated some of the things Ms. Rosario just stated, but she said, we know that we cannot disregard or fail to address shortcomings. This is an opportunity for organization self-reflection, because there's internal things going on and so forth. But ensuring that equity goals, strategies, and tactics committed to the work and accountability for that work are clearly articulated in our strategic plan. Partnering with experts who specialize in diversity, equity, inclusion, very, very important, and executive committee training. So I think they're kind of taking a look within and trying to even improve there, but I do support a letter regarding the stand that they took.
Yeah, the email that you're reading from is not
No, I
with
know.
regard to this.
I know.
That's a
I know.
totally different
I know.
thing.
But I think she
That's-
said some important things.
Yeah, that's about their organization and that has nothing to do with what I'm requesting for us to be on the same page with.
Mrs. Barrenborn?
Yeah, are you referring, is anybody referring to the email about 1022, where she talks about the follow-up letter from the NSBA?
Yes, we
Okay.
mentioned that.
Okay, because I agree with you. I think that we need to stand for what's right, and we need to send a letter to our organization thanking them for standing up for what was right.
I agree with that as well. So the question
Awesome.
is, how do we, I would ask Dr. Moore and/or Mrs. DiAgresta, and maybe you could work with, if we approve the letter, assuming we can do this, Mrs. DiAgresta, maybe work with Mrs. Rosario to draft a letter that circulated and we can approve it, you know, respond back via email. Does that work from a legal standpoint, or whether that's even the right choice of words?
Yes, I'm happy to work with Mrs. Rosario in coming up with a letter, and just to be clear, you want it to be circulated to all school board members, and within 48 hours, it would be signed and sent off. Who would sign on behalf of the board?
I can sign, but it should be clear, I'm only signing on behalf of the five of us,
Correct.
this is, right. And we should probably, if we could get that draft to Dr. Schiff, just so she knows.
Perfect.
I know she's on vacation, all right.
Do I need to make a motion for that? Or we've already got?
Make your, I guess we have.
We never, but at least we've got consensus, more than consensus. Okay, I make a motion for this board to write a letter of support to the Florida School Boards Association with regard to their October 11th, 2021 letter sent to the National School Boards Association.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
All right. Now we got to get back in the, I don't want to miss anything. Do we go now to member matters?
Discussion, you added an item to discussion.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me. You're right. The item that was added for discussion is part of when we, and just voted to withdraw the policy on public at board meetings, was to discuss the possibility, and it would come up for a vote at the organizational meeting on November 16th, to begin that meeting at 5:30 and allow, and it gives us an extra half an hour. We would, but allow the citizen input form not to have to be presented before the meeting started, but allow it to be presented up to 5:45, time specific. For those working families that maybe don't get off work till 5 o'clock, it would give them time to get here, fill out a form, and get it to the board secretary before we actually begin, after presentations, the more formal part, not that that's not formal, but the more formal part of the meeting. That was the discussion. So if I framed that correctly or didn't, feel free to, your job.
Yeah, a thought occurred to me between this afternoon's discussion and tonight. I think there are other boards that do this. I'm not quite sure. I remember a discussion, I think, with Andrea Messina about this, that some people are allowed to submit the citizen input forms ahead of time, and that way they don't have to rush to get here on time, and that way if they're here when they're called, then they can speak. If they're not here when they're called, they cannot. Would that cause, I see your eyes over there, would that cause an issue, or would that mess us up with the order that people are speaking in? Mrs. Esplin?
Well, during the board meeting today, I'm not in a position to be able to start downloading your citizen input forms for speakers, because I'm already in meetings.
So what if they did it up to the day before, or they can come to the board meeting and submit it in person? Would that work?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So, let me answer, Nancy.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry.
That would be a policy change, right?
It would require a policy change.
Okay.
Because, which is absolutely fine. Having the opportunity to submit the forms earlier is a very common practice. There's no reason to do that. And typically, as you just mentioned, that's what I'm familiar with. Leading up to the day in which the board meeting is taking place, you can submit a form online. You just simply fill it out and you print it. It's timestamped from the time that it comes in. We did something similar during the pandemic. That takes care of that. And then people who come on the day of have up until 5:45 to submit that form. So it does require a policy change, but procedurally, it's nothing that we can't handle.
I just think that if we're looking at moving the time up, to be fair to working parents.
I agree with all of that.
Okay. So I think that we need to put that then as an action item?
An
then?
action item.
And we can't do that now, but we can do that in the future
We
too.
can add it as an action item for the
November.
next board meeting.
The November meeting.
Right,
It's the November organizational meeting.
right.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah, I think to offer an option of submitting a citizen input form electronically ahead of time, as well as come to the board meeting and be able to do it.
So how far ahead can you submit?
Through the chair, they could submit tomorrow if we did, just prior to the board meeting, so that the link would be active and be live. It's relatively straightforward. We would have it, staff would have it, and make it available.
Might I suggest that perhaps between now and then, you or one of your staff could draft what that policy looks
No, I'll
like?
bring- yeah.
You can review it with each of us on our individual meetings to get feedback so that it is put on the agenda on the 16th it's in a sort of a final form that's, we can tweak it then, but basically it's pretty much done.
Well, we will be briefing it with Thursday and Monday, so.
All right?
I'm still hoping that you all will change your mind from 5:30 to 5:45. We have time still until that reorganizational meeting, because sometimes we don't have a lot of presentations. Today, we had 2 lengthy presentations. Some presentations are just one, and then it goes quickly. So something to consider between now and then.
Okay.
We are in discussion now, we're not in action, so it's okay for us to just have that discussion. That would be, I would fully support that. I would support the 5:30 as well, better than to do what we were doing before, but my preference would be 5:45.
And Dr. Moore, can you, when you speak with Dr. Schiff, update her on this discussion and get her input as well so that she's not, doesn't feel left out?
Absolutely.
So if someone submits a week ahead of time and they're not here, if we start at 5:30, if they're here before we finish citizen input, they could speak, correct?
Through the chair, that would be, I think, ultimately up to the chair. My previous district, they called the names in the order in which they were received. If someone did show up during at the end, the chair would always go back and say, has, Jackie Rosario showed up? Has Doc Jones showed up? To give them that opportunity at the end of the public hearing, whenever that would end.
We've done that in the past. I mean,
Absolutely.
once in a
No,
while,
yeah,
people
it's-
weren't here, or they were out in the other room and maybe didn't
Mhm.
hear their name called. So I think if people are going to make the effort to come, we should make the effort to accommodate them.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple. All right. Good discussion. Now I think we can go to board member matters. Doc Jones, how would you like to begin? You get to kick off this section.
Thank you to Mr. Fagan and the HITEF committee for continuing their research on best plans for not only our teachers, administrators, support staff, and our retired educators. I think there's a lot of collaboration there, and I thank you. As Ms. Emerson said earlier, that school choice fair, first of all, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of information given to us from the schools. Our after-school programs were there, our charters, our bus transportation. Really, really good information, community partners. I always update you on football games are going well. School cafeteria week, I was able to get to Dodgertown, and their theme was Under the Sea. And some of the pictures we saw today from the video, they were absolutely outstanding. And just a kudos to our cafeteria staff for just doing the best they can each and every day for our students and healthy meals. I appreciate that. I was at the Upward Bound season opener with Miss Ida Lett. She used to be a principal in our district, and she was there. Dr. Moore was there, Eric Seymour. Absolutely wonderful event where working with students on a regular basis, academic achievement, a lot of other things that were going on, and I was really pleased to be there. As I said earlier in the workshop, I was at the United Against Poverty Blessing for Burgers, Burger Blessings. I'm sorry, yes. I hadn't been there in a while, and that grocery store is absolutely wonderful. The produce, everything in there was just wonderful. And learning more from Ms. Mallett in her department today on homeless, again, just brings us back to, what our core beliefs are in helping every student in this district, especially with our families who are struggling. The textbook adoption I talked a little bit about, and I think I've told you I'm on the Wilson Scholarship. They are now a nonprofit, probably looking to partner with our school district to give the scholarships yearly for Coach Wilson and Mr. Billy Wilson, who passed last year. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mrs. Berenborg?
Yeah, I continue to listen to the planning and zoning meetings. We're still building. And next one is this Thursday, but I think I'll be here at the, yeah, I had a meeting instead. I also attended the Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments meeting that meets once a month. And they have really great presentations that are coming forward. And I'm actually going to be the chair of that for the next year. So there were a couple of presentations that have not come forward that I think would be wonderful. And any suggestions that you also have that I think our community members need to really look at together. One that comes to mind immediately is school bus issues, and that I'm sure is going to come up at the next meeting for sure. Then I also attended the Central Florida School Board Coalition meeting, that virtual meeting. I couldn't tell who was on there from ours. I think Dr. Schiff was on there. But that was really good. It was long. It was like 3 hours long, but it was really interesting and informative. The one thing, though, that they kept bringing up was that they are going to ask for the lottery. It's not lottery money. It is sports gambling money. They want that to go towards education, and so that's going to be a platform that they're going to put forward this year in Tallahassee. Crown Jewel Festival, that was my first time attending that. And I have listened to it from outside. When my kids were really little, we would go and listen to band practice, and then as soon as the band would stop playing, we'd roll up the windows real quick for other reasons. But yeah, the kids get kind of yelled at sometimes. I didn't want the kids to hear that. But it was amazing.
They're great.
It was, some of the bands were just phenomenal. Of course, Vero Beach High School was just so good. I was wondering why Sebastian wasn't there, but I know now.
Okay.
I know now because they were at a wonderful festival competition up in, yeah, where was that? Gainesville or somewhere?
I thought Orlando.
Orlando.
Bands of America.
Yeah, and so Crown Jewel was phenomenal. Big Burger Blessing, thank you for the invite. It was really good to be back out at UP and what they're doing there. What's impressive now are all the different agencies that are involved and what's happening. Instead of everybody stepping on each other's toes, I think our community is starting to work together more on helping people without everybody trying to help the same people, but trying to get the dollars to help everybody. So I think that's wonderful. And then the United Way virtual breakfast meeting was very entertaining. Congratulations, Dr. Moore, on getting the Richardson Award. It was very cool. It was very entertaining with all the Jeffs on there. But what was interesting, the presentation that they did at the beginning made me call you up. I think I texted you during it because you were on there, and I was texting you and said, oh my goodness, this goes right with what we were trying to promote. And okay for me to talk about? Yeah. Okay. So they brought up intergenerational parks and how different communities are taking parks and they're making them so that there are things there for adults, things there for kids. They're taking more, trying to make more green space for a community to come together, which Lord knows we could use. And I thought, the property right across from Vero Beach High School, of course, is something that we've been kind of talking about and you've been showing us plans on. At what point is that going to start rolling out for people to kind of look at what's happening and proposed?
To the chair, you're talking about the property across from Vero Beach.
Yes.
So right now, we're vetting concept right now, a number of community interviews to ensure that the level of giving would support what we have in store for the community, as well as those particular ideas. Are they the right ideas? So right now, we're in a process of getting information back from the community regarding those particular initiatives. We're doing that over the course of the next 3 weeks. That presentation will come to the board in probably December, and that would be our soft launch if we're able to get the validation. This is a concept. The initiatives that we're planning are, in fact, something that can be supported through giving, and that would be the opportunity for us to sell or soft launch. This is the programming, these are the ideas, and begin a campaign over the course of the next year or two, or even hopefully quicker, to bring to life everything that we're dreaming of.
So with that being said, then the United Way, along with different agencies and county commission and city council and things like that, would they be included then on your next step of how to promote this and talk about it?
So through the chair, we've already met with a number of those organizations in which you just met in terms of opportunities to align our support. So one of the things that we're beginning to gain a great deal of traction is what you just referenced, partnership. When you see each of the local law enforcement organizations being here tonight, the acknowledgement to United Way last week, we are gaining traction and a high level of respect for the work that we do and the partnership that we provide. So you're going to see a number of initiatives interwoven across a number of the organizations across our community.
But United Way isn't one that you've already discussed with?
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have? Okay. I thought you texted me and said you hadn't yet. Okay. All right. And I was just excited to see what they were promoting with all these other communities. And I thought, oh, wait till you see what we hope to do.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I just add one more thing to
I'm
that.
sorry, I was told I had to mention another thing, which is the golf tournament that's this Saturday. We need players. Anybody knows any golfers that want to sign up for a wonderful tournament? Tons of prizes. They're sitting in my office right now. And the hole-in-one prizes are amazing, $10,000, I think, a car or something. And that's $110 at Sandridge. This Saturday includes a barbecue lunch. We upgraded everything, so please get the word out. We need golfers badly. Thank you. Sorry.
You know, I just add one more point to this discussion around the Grays Fields. I was getting updated by Ms. Emerson earlier. She's got 42 interviews scheduled. I was talking to Ray Oglethorpe earlier, and he's on deck for tomorrow, and she had a couple today. And I've talked to some of the same people that are going to be formally interviewed by this group, and I think that I've not heard anybody that doesn't think this is a great idea. And of course, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's when you start paying for the ideas that the rubber meets the road. So, but I'm very encouraged. More importantly, Ms. Emerson, who's put in a lot of time and effort on this initiative, was really excited tonight because no one had said no. Everyone was delighted to give their 2 cents and input. So we'll see where that goes. I'd also like to thank Mr. Marsh over there, who's humble Michael Marsh. I thoroughly enjoyed being over at your shindig the other afternoon. I think that's got to be an annual happening because if you're there long enough, you see everybody. But it was well done. And you know what you might do is start a raffle, and over and under raffles, how many turkeys you actually can give away Thanksgiving with the winner getting a turkey. So, you know, so I'll be happy to help. And the only other thing I would add is the MPO the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, has a big meeting tomorrow. The last couple have gotten canceled, or they were over. There was a big one, a strategy session over at the intergenerational a couple of weeks ago, IG Center, which I did not attend, but I was talking to Joe Flesher about it. But tomorrow will be an interesting meeting. Again, they're still talking about the roundabout at 66 and 510, and some things never go away. So that's really my report on any of the committees.
May I?
Sure.
I think you skipped right over me. We skipped a meeting, so I didn't get to share with you all that on Tuesday, October 5th, I was invited to read to children at the Douglas Head Start School in Wabasso, and it was so sweet. I love opportunities to do that. I also attended the district's Community Day, which was presented earlier, and at the IG Center, and I was so thoroughly impressed. I really was. I was also impressed that charter schools were invited to attend as well as part of this district's choice, so that was lovely to see. Then the night after, I attended the National Night Out with the Sheriff's Office, also at the IG Center. I just want to say that, you know, the work that they're doing there is really, really phenomenal. And the outreach is really, the awareness is really one that I have to commend. So I'm glad that I went to that. They had a lot of activities. There was one in particular which is fairly new. It's a new initiative. They have a truck that you walk through as a parent without your child, and you have a piece of paper, and what I thought was interesting and probably really fitting for tonight being the Vaping Awareness Proclamation that was read against youth vaping, the youth vaping epidemic, that you walk through as a parent and you kind of identify the different areas where it's actually set up like a bedroom. And you walk through and you identify areas where paraphernalia would be hidden. And then at the end, you kind of talk with one of the deputies to kind of locate those areas, so you got it right, you didn't get it right. And I actually missed a few, which I thought that I got them all. But it was really, really interesting. I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to raise awareness for parents with regard to substance abuse. So for that, at least that night, I'm glad that I went. I also had the Executive Roundtable Golf Tournament on, so I'm glad that Mrs. Berenberg mentioned that. Prism tickets are now on sale. I know those are gonna go out super quick. So if you are interested in this year's Christmas Winter Celebration performance at Sebastian River High School, please buy your tickets right away. If you have never, you all have your tickets?
I got mine.
Have you ever been? Yeah.
No?
Oh, this would be your first, no?
No, I was one of the first events I did when I first got here.
Okay. So I highly suggest that anyone who is interested, get your tickets right away. I had on here the National School Lunch Week because I just thought that it was such a wonderful opportunity to see the children's artwork that was posted. I would love to just, like, there were so many pictures. I would love to suggest that maybe when we do something like this in the future, that these pictures somehow get duplicated so that we can put them on our walls, you know, put them around the hall. I know that our vestibule outside is kind of packed, but we have a huge wall behind us. It would be wonderful. Or even in the back on the sides, to put up children's artwork in here. These walls are so bare, and our kids have such incredible projects that they're doing in the schools. So maybe we can talk about things like that, or, you know, utilize this room to celebrate our children in a different way. But other than that, I think that's it. Oh, with the field across from Vero Beach High School. When these plans come to us, my only request is that we absolutely talk about inclusive playgrounds or inclusive springs, water
part of
fountain
it.
or something.
We talked about
We
that, yeah.
need to be able to ensure that that is a part of whatever happens on that field, because it's just critical, it's needed.
Ms. Emerson and Ms. Clem and Laura Moss and I met a couple months ago just to begin that, what it will look like. And they gave us some very good examples of some in other counties that were just doing a great job.
You know, in that regard, one of the Johns Island, there's the Foundation and the Service League. One of those two organizations is very interested in taking responsibility for funding that particular, either through a grant or helping solicit specific donations from people, not through the normal channels, but individually. So,
That's fantastic.
all right, that concludes members' matters. Dr. Moore.
No real presentation, but I want to thank the board proper for your additional compensation. It truly is appreciated on behalf of my wife and myself. Truly, truly valued. Coming to Indian River County has been a challenging opportunity. Knew it would be challenging coming in, but because of the pandemic, significantly more challenging. But as I sit back and I reflect on today, I think it was a great day of problem solving. One of the things that we're working on from a senior staff and cabinet level is really to empower our senior leaders. So to see the number of senior leaders that were presented today to the board was so encouraging to me, whether it was Ms. Caster-Foley, Ms. Mallets, Tracy, Ms. Emerson being acknowledged, Mr. Carver. I say Caster-Foley.
Pastor Foley.
Krista Foley.
We just call her Miss Beth.
Sorry, Beth.
Miss Beth.
Really is by design, and the more that we can empower those leaders more as a system, we will be effective. So to see that distributive leadership across the organization, the level of ownership, that's the real success. That's the real reason the district is finding its success through these challenging times. And I look at the leaders that we have in this building and the leaders that we have in our school sites just continuing to grow, and expect nothing but great things as we continue to move forward. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the meeting. Meeting adjourned at 8:39. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.